Welcome back, and today we are flying out the Mirage 4000. It's a good little plane, it's highly maneuverable, it has a good amount of missiles. It's basically a Mirage 2000, except you have two of them, making it 4000. You have two engines, you have double the missiles. Unfortunately, you don't have like double the radar power or double the ammo count or whatever. But overall, this plane feels pretty damn good. It's very maneuverable, and because this thing has so much thrust, even though it is a delta wing and it might lose speed relatively quickly and pulls an absolute shitload of AOA, it will just power through everything and you can dogfight essentially every plane at top tier. We need to go a little bit more in depth. I'm not sure how well it fares against something like the Gripen, but this thing, it turns really well. It can hold its own very strongly. However, there is a massive gripe that I have with this thing. And this necessarily doesn't make it bad. It's about the battle presence that you have with the Magic 2s, and together with the fact that you can't really full afterburn throughout the entire match, because if you take 30 minutes of fuel, this thing turns into a boat. This thing becomes very heavy and you essentially can't really fight anyone. Now with 20 minutes of fuel, this thing is highly agile, but you will have to manage your afterburner a little bit. Meaning that you won't be that fast. It only goes about 1.05 on half afterburner, which means that you won't close the gap as quickly. And these Magic 2s, while they have been buffed quite recently, they are aerodynamically much more efficient and they have a lot more range. It's still not that much, and very often you will find yourself reaching people, shooting the missile, and just before your missile hits, they're gonna die to someone else that has shot the missile from much further away. Or they're simply just closer because they are just much faster than you. So overall, I'm not really a big fan of this thing in terms of how it plays out. It's great in the smaller fights, it's great when you ambush people because you have 8 missiles on the rails, and if you run all Magic 2s you can basically slam half the lobby from behind. The IRCCM is very good and they still have a decent amount of reach. And they are still pretty damn maneuverable. So if you do get in range, if you do get into position to really use these things, they're great. That right there is one issue with the Magic 2, however, or another issue I should say. They don't really prime the proxy fuse until they are in the air for like 1 to 1.5 seconds. Meaning that if you get too close and you shoot it in the head on, it's just gonna fly past them unless it hits them directly in the cockpit, which is rather annoying. And secondly, we of course have the 530Ds. Now luckily you can carry the Ds and not just the Fs, which are infinitely better. The Ds you can at least tell people to hold them, and with the Fs they are just gonna be chaffed out of existence, even if they're flying directly into it. It is maneuverable, you can see it just kind of snaking and flopping around like my dick dolls on a Saturday, but on overall, it's a decent missile. I'm not a big fan of it, it's simply too slow. The radar is good enough, but the missile is just... it doesn't really know where it is, and very often you'll find yourself it just kind of missing if they notch a little bit. I didn't find them very consistent. Most amount of success that I had was versus people that are like directly above or directly below you when you shoot down on someone. The lock is pretty stable. From behind they are okay. I think they feel better than something like the AIM-7Ms. From the head on they're okay, they're just too slow, and then from a joust, especially against something like an Su-27, unless of course they are shooting someone else and are completely oblivious to the fact that you are directly next to them, you're not gonna have the most amount of success. But of course I still carry one of them. They're very helpful and they make it so that I have a little bit more battle presence, and I just kinda like to run them in case the situation arises. I still have 7 Magic 2s. I am not gonna be running out anytime soon. I'm just spamming these things off left, right and center, and that's the most amount of success that I've had with it. Just kinda go in, do your thing, drop your dookie and leave. It's not so much like the Su-27 for example that we covered yesterday, which is an actual missile boat. This is a bit of a bridge gap. It has insane flight performance. The missiles, it's a missile sleigh, but it's not so much carried by the missiles, if that makes any sense. And that's mainly just the range and the usability of them. Now let's very quickly look at some flight performance. We have an F-16C on a 6. Now he shoots an AIM-7M at us, so I'm gonna turn in, I'm gonna notch, I'm gonna actually use my chaff a little bit, and then we break out, and he's going to overshoot because he is much faster than us. So we get behind him instantly, and he's not gonna have a very easy time getting away from us here. I miss my lock, so I have to reacquire it. Luckily this thing is agile enough to the point where I can just point my nose wherever I want and launch the missile at him. If it's rear aspect and if it's like kind of turning into you, so you see the top of his plane and he's dropping his flares downwards, the flares are never gonna reach the seeker head, and the flares are just gonna be ignored. And just like that, he gets slammed out of the air. And if the Magic 2 has the room It will pull in almost every time. Once they are up to speed, they pull extremely hard. And they are very nice and very satisfying to look at. As long as they are in range, of course. Now I want you to look at this flight performance once more. And yes, you are gonna say, my brother in Christ, that is an F4S. And correct, you have read his name very well, because that is indeed an F4S. But I just want you to see how big the gap really is right here. And I don't have many dogfights to actually showcase you. So we are gonna turn in, we won't lose that much speed. So we are actually quite a bit faster than him right now. The other F4S flies away, so we can actually commit to this fight. And the speed retention is actually pretty okay. Now of course once you get into the peak AOA range, you're gonna absolutely shit it away, but you're gonna maintain a healthy speed. And I want you to just take a look at this in a singular loop. He went from having a shot to me being on him. Now he reverses his turn, sealing his fate even quicker. But I mean at this point it doesn't really matter, because the F4S is already just dead. We take both his wingtips off and he goes right into the ground. And then you have maps like this. It's the Veiny Cock map, and it's pretty good for this plane because you can actually maneuver around them, use the terrain as cover, and if you get slow enough and you do have to disengage, you will be able to without having to worry too much about missiles, because they have to go around the mountain to actually shoot at you, giving you a little bit more time and room, and perhaps even something to put in between you and the missile to counter it. Now this F-16 AJ is being an absolute rat, and he sends it after the first guy that he sees, and he is just gonna send it after us. Now we have our entire team around us, so I'm just gonna keep on turning after him, or in front of him I should say. And then once I notice that I have the room to get away, I'm just gonna dip behind this rock right here, and we are gonna just leave him in the dust. Now he can't really shoot at us, and he only has aim 9L, so they're really not that dangerous when it comes to them just flying through my flare. So I'm just gonna disengage. He dies, he gets slapped by my squad mate, and we are going to turn in and fly towards the middle of the map. We are going to be able to lock onto some people in the head-on, and I'm trying to bait him into getting a little bit of altitude so that I can slam him with the 530D. The missile misses, and there's no real reason why I'm still using ACM here. I just kind of forgot to turn it off. Here we do. Missile the first one out of the air, and because he's just far away enough, the missile actually has time to proxy him. And the second one is too busy looking forward, and he ends up eating it in his tailpipe. Unfortunately, there was a reason he was busy, and now my teammate is dead. It's however not that big of an issue, because the game is basically already won as long as we don't make any critical errors. So I'm gonna get a little bit slower here, just so that I'm not compressing and I get into my optimal speed range, so I can engage this F-16. Now this F-16 already has a Gripen on his 6. I'm gonna shoot a missile at him anyway, because I still have 4 left. And then this F-16 does the absolute gigabrain strat of helping his teammate back to the hangar, and then also himself. Absolutely incredible gameplay. Izo, you are actually the biggest gamer of the year. Then we get behind some people, and this is just some more showcase clips of the Magic 2. We are at a medium altitude, 3 kilometers. Then you can expect like 2.5 kilometer shots from behind, but they need to be not paying attention. If they start turning a little bit, and if they start dodging your missile, they will run it out of energy very quickly, and you're gonna end up doing absolutely nothing. And that right there on the right was an example of the missile just always being a little bit too late. We shoot 2 more off. I think one of them gets flared, the other one just collects it in his forehead. And the game is over. 1 merge, game done. And that's just the annoying part of this plane. You're basically always just too late. So we magic a J11 out of the air. He was basically stalled out and not paying attention. But again, we wrapped around the map. We did 1 merge, and basically that team is evaporated. Now we don't know where the last guys are. I do know it's an F-16 here, so I'm just gonna shoot a missile off because I still have so many anyway. It doesn't hit, and we are gonna go and look for the last guys. We need to be vigilant here because we need to know where they are coming from. I don't see anything on my RWR, and then an F-16 and an F-15 pop up from the front. Now, I can do the sensible thing and turn around, go back to my team and kind of stay together, or I'm gonna headbutt the danger and see if I can get some interesting footage out of it. First missile comes in, I see this massive cock over here, and I'm just gonna sit behind it. Absolutely perfect. You don't have to dodge it. Using terrain is always better than just trying to dodge it outright, because it's saving you resources and it's inherently a lot less risky. Shoot a missile at the J11, he's not paying attention at all, and then we have to dodge 4 radar people at the same time. Well, actually it's only 2, but they're also shooting 2 missiles, so that's 4 people in total, right? So I'm gonna use the cock again. We are just gonna circle around it, and I'm gonna make sure that this F-15 doesn't get a solution on me. I wanna keep staying around, because if I'm slow here, I'm gonna be very vulnerable. So I'm gonna let the F-16 die, and I'm gonna dive back in between all these rocks. And that's basically it. They sacrificed the position, 2 of them were chasing me, they lost a lot of speed, energy and time, and now my team is just able to clean them up from behind. Shoot a missile at the F-15, he flares it. Luckily we also have some guns and we managed to crit him, but it's an F-15, so he's of course not going to die. We circle back in, we're gonna try to help our team, but at this point the game is essentially over. And this is my gripe with the plane. Very often you are in the thick of it, you are fighting 20 people at once and you end up with absolute dickhole to show for it. Here we are on a good map for this plane yet again. Pop up over the hill, shoot 2 missiles off, they are both going to be dead. However, the F-14 manages to die just before I hit him, which means that again my missile is just too late and I get nothing for it. But we get a kill and we are going to engage the next guy. Now this is a guy that has been ejaculating his phoenixes all over the map. So I'm gonna stay low yet again. I notice that I have a bit of room here. The missile isn't that fast yet. So I can actually lock him up. We're gonna lock him up at the 530. And because he's going right at us and I am low, he is high, he's flying directly at me. He's gonna end up eating the missile right in his cockpit. Except this missile just randomly misses sometimes and we get absolutely nothing out of it. However, this flight performance is very much superior to the F-14 and I only have 4 minutes of fuel left, making this thing an absolute menace. So we lead the missile a little bit, we shoot it off, it connects of course because it's a rear aspect F-14, he ends up eating it and he is going back to the hangar. We go back into the terrain and we're going back to being an ambush fighter. Here's a flashbang for everyone watching at night. I keep fat fingering the N key and just flashbanging myself as well. It was like 1 or 2 AM at this point and my eyes are still not recovered 3 days later. So what do we do at this point? Well, it's a matter of looking around. I know roughly where they are, but not exactly. And it turns out I didn't even know roughly because I thought it was still like kind of in front of me at like 1 or 2 o'clock. However, he ends up being directly behind me. Now the Gripen is gonna engage the F-16, so I kind of want to cover his rear in case the other guy pops up. But I don't see him anywhere, and I think it's better to clean him up quickly, just to make sure that the last guy is actually a 2v1 in case he comes over the hill, surprises us, takes one of us down, and now is a 2v1 in our disadvantage. So I'd rather take the fight right now, we fuel explode him back to the hangar, and then the last guy shows up, it's now a 2v1, he has a mirror matchup with more fuel, and then also Mirage 4000. So this guy is gonna have absolutely no chance. Unless he's actually a magician, but we have been staying at a good speed range, also to conserve fuel, but also to merge properly. I get on his 6, I have the room to let this missile pull in, and he just can't do anything. He went a little bit too fast, we were in our optimal speed range, and he instantly ate shit for it. Here comes the MiG-29, I can get a good luck, he's pre-flaring, so instead I'll just use my guns, shoot him right out of the cockpit. And after that we are just gonna wrap around and go back towards the middle of the map like we usually do. We have arrived, however our team is kind of doing all the work again. We are a little bit behind and we just are not in a good position to get these missiles off. Also because they are all flying towards me or too far away, so I can't really do anything. I don't really have any pressure here other than just being there. And of course if I get multiple people in the fight, in like a dogfight, then my entire team can clean them up. But something like the Gripen can do that as well, while also doing it a little bit better than you, because it will actually hold its speed so well that is basically not killable, also because of the flares and countermeasures that you have. The countermeasures are a little bit of a limiting factor on this thing. If you are used to something like an F-15 or a Gripen, which was what I was flying just before this, which is why I'm using them so royally. And you can see that I'm just absolutely chewing through them. I'm pre-flaring a little bit too much, and I'm running mix, making it so that I don't have that many pops left. And this is gonna end up biting me in the ass. Shoot a missile at him. I'm not sure if he saw it, but he dodges it anyway. And now we are going to go into a little bit of a 3v1. We have an F-15, an F-4S and a MiG-29. Now the MiG-29 is really not an issue. The F-4S really isn't either. The F-15 is kind of worrying me, so I'm just going to break off, shoot a missile at him. And he's going to collect it because he isn't fast enough to get away from it. So we get inside of the MiG-29 turning circle here. We managed to crit him. It's kind of awkward to aim at low speed. I thought that it was severely crit, but he just pulls up anyway. And we are still stuck in this fight, and now 2 extra Su-27 show up, so I need to get these missiles off. And I want you to take a look at my nose here. I'm having trouble getting the circle on his plane. Now these might not hit, but I need to get them off, even if it's for pressure, weight reduction, or just praying that one of them actually hits. The MiG-29 goes down, and we are just out of flares. And you can tell that once this thing is slow, you are gonna stay slow, and you're gonna have a bit of an issue getting back up to speed in these kind of fights. And because of the slow speed nature and just I've just been flying the F-15, the Gripen with 500 rounds, stuff like that. So I was thinking I had a lot more ammo. My resource management was absolutely trash, and that's why this is at the end of the video. So most of you hopefully won't see it. Thank you all for watching, and you'll see me in the next one.